Ciao a tutti, this is Chris with See Italy, and I'm here today to give you a follow-up tutorial on social media pics, and in specifically creating engaging social media pics that incorporate text and that your clients and your followers will want to share with their friends and family. This is a follow-up to the tutorial that I made for you a few weeks ago, in which I taught you how to include your brand into social media pics using Adobe Spark. So if you see here, I have these are my projects. So these are the various pictures and social media posts and projects and videos that I've been working on with Adobe Spark. So last time, I'm just going to click on this one right here, I taught you, it'll take a second to load, how to include your brand. And you can do that here by incorporating your URL, the company website, if it's short and to the point, or you can also, if you have a specific hashtag, you might be able to add that in. So for instance, I could do See Italy, and I will be able to add that in once it's nice and small and not taking up the entire screen, and put that in a place where it makes sense and is visible so that your clients, when they see your posts, will be able to recognize your brand and know immediately that this is part of your marketing system and they will know this is you. So specifically today, I wanted to talk a little bit about social media, not so much from this perspective of branding, but from the perspective of the audience. So why do we use social media? Why do we create pictures like this, and why do we post them? A lot of travel agents and a lot of people in the business world, when they think of social media, they immediately think, well, this is the way that I'm going to create sales. This is the way that I'm going to sell, and expand my business. And while social media is immensely important in getting your name out there, in creating a reputation and an image for yourself, I think a lot of agents sometimes fast forward and think that social media should be about selling. So they might only post when there is a cruise deal, or they might only post when they are escorting a trip. And in the process, people are pretty savvy out there about knowing when they're being sold something. It's the difference between watching a TV show where an author is presenting the book and they're having an interview with the host of the show, or at 2 in the morning you're flipping through and you get an infomercial. It's most likely that you're not going to watch the infomercial because you know they're doing a hard sell for you. You sort of tune out and you are initially just a little bit defensive about that. While if you're watching the interview, you are entertained, you're hearing stories, and as a result, you're more open to the experience and receiving what they have to say. Even if selling is happening in both cases, it's happening in very different modes. And I think we should just keep that in mind as we create our social media. So, what are the ways why do we use social media? And why do people use social media? Think about yourself when you're on Facebook. You're not always there in order to create posts for your business. You're there sometimes during the office because you want to connect with friends, you want to share a memory, a photo, or a video of something that happened a while ago or recently, so that others can know what you're experiencing, what's going on in your life. You use it to stay in touch with people across distance. Maybe you moved and you live far away from family, but you like to like their photos to show that you know what's going on in their family, that you are happy about their daughter's recent graduation, etc., etc. And as business people, we also use it to inform our clients. So if there is an upcoming trip, or if there's a sudden sale on United for flights, for instance, you might want to let your audience in on that. As audience members of social media, we also use it to be entertained. We want it to be fun. We want it to be something that engages us, that, tickles our brain a little bit during the workday or in our downtime. So when you are creating social media posts, it's important to remember that the sales part comes after the rest of these things. So when your clients feel connected to you, when your clients feel like they're staying in touch with who you are and what you've done and what you've experienced, and when they feel informed and entertained, they're going to be more willing to trust you and be more willing to work with you. So you don't have to necessarily, have a social media post that announces, huge sale, 10% off. That can sometimes work against you because people might stop following you. They might not pay attention to your posts because they'll all blur together. So you have to think, in social media, am I conveying who I am? Am I conveying my expertise? Am I conveying what I can offer a traveler? And am I also doing something that stands out, that keeps them entertained, that keeps them wanting to follow me? So if you see here, this is one of the posts that I recently came up with. And this is something that in our business, we have a lot of travelers who, as we focus on Italy, are interested in food tours. This can be cooking classes, in this case, a tour of the Parmesan factory, wine tasting at a vineyard, or going to see where they grow olives and how they create olive oil out of that process. So I know that a big part of our business is conveying to our audience that we know about food activities in Italy that other people don't know about. So I wanted to create an engaging, shareable picture here. And what do I mean by engaging, and what do I mean by shareable? Engaging simply means that on social media, your post is something that would attract an interaction with your audience. That could be comments in the comment section, it could be likes, it could be clicks, people simply clicking on the photo and taking a peek. It could be questions that people are posting. Maybe you posted something and they didn't know that you knew about that, or that's part of your services. And obviously, it's also could be shares. So did they like it enough that they want to share it with their friends, with their families, or the people that they're close to? By shareable, I simply mean that the post that you have created is something that your audience will want to share. So if you are being a little too hard-handed in your selling, they might not want to share it with their friends because they'll feel like they're pushing something on their friends. Instead, if you create something that's engaging, that's fun, that's enticing, it's more likely that your audience will want to share this with people because it will remind them about why they want to travel and not simply the bottom line of this is what the travel will cost. So remember that when you are posting something to your followers, they too can post this to their friends and family, and think about yourself a little bit in their shoes. If you received something on social media and you said, oh, I don't want to share that, you want to be sure that you understand why you don't want to share that, and that your social media presence isn't replicating those sort of bad habits, the hard sell, the pushiness, etc. So your content is what's going to be organically inspiring the sharing. So the content is the image, the text, and clearly your brand, or if you have a hashtag that you consistently use. And so in this case, the content, I know that we are a company that has a number of food tours, and I wanted to do something fun with this. So one of the great tours that we do is of a Parmesan factory in the Emilia-Romagna region. So travelers can go and see where the Parmesan is made. They learn about the process. They see how the milk is transformed into the initial stages, and then the aging. They walk the halls where these wheels of Parmesan are aging for at least 1 year. And at the end, they get to have a tasting of Parmesan in the very place where it's made. So I was thinking to myself, how can I create something engaging out of this? Simply posting the picture and saying, the tour. Oh, excuse me, my computer is. Oh, here we are. Excuse me, sorry about that. Simply posting a picture like this on its own, it might get a few likes. People say, ooh, I like cheese, but it doesn't really tell a story, right? It doesn't necessarily engage them apart from on the visual side. So one of the best ways to do this is to think about connecting the text and the image. So how can I create an engaging post by marrying engaging text and a compelling image? To do this, there's a bit of homework you have to do ahead of time. So you can't just create from nothing. So first, you want to think about, what is your brand? What are the services you provide? What's your niche market? Are you someone who does luxury cruises? Are you someone who only sells France and Italy? Are you someone who focuses on safari tours? Are you someone who is aimed more at the adventure traveler and you sell kayaking expeditions and bungee jumping, etc., etc., etc.? All of these things will determine the types of images and the types of language you want to use and the types of audience that you're trying to appeal to. You also want to think, what is the purpose of your post? Are you just creating eye candy? Are you aiming to expand your brand recognition, so you want to be sure that your brand is center stage in the image? Are you trying to show your expertise, that you know about things that the everyday traveler who's Googling doesn't know about? Are you trying to make people laugh and just entertain them during their workday while they're in the office? All of these things will change the types of text and the types of images that you want to use. But all along, you want to be sure that it's brand consistent. So if you are someone who does outdoors travel, and it's very active and you're trekking through the mountains, you want to be sure that the images are, conveying that and communicating that to your audience. So the next step is, what kind of image do you want to use? So let's stick with the one that I'm focusing on here. I know what my brand is. We do Italy. We create customized, personalized tours of Italy. So I want to be sure that the image that I'm using is something that conveys this sort of personal attention and unique aspect and not just a prepackaged tour. And so I also am thinking, you know what? Increasingly, we're selling more and more food tours. This is becoming an important part of our business, an expanding part of our business. So I want the image to have to do with food. One of the popular ones that we recently have begun selling is this Parmesan tour, so that seems like a great jumping off point. So in order to find that image, this one is already here, but as I showed you in the last time, you can click on Photo, and you can click on Find Photos. And here I'm simply going to type in Parmigiano, so the Italian word for Parmesan. And we will have a few photos, and all of these photos are not copyrighted. These are public domain photos, so you can use them without worrying that there's any copyright on it and that there'll be any legal ramifications for you using this photo. I could also type in Italian cheese, for instance, and see what else came up. There might be some great images that I could use. So, for instance, we have some mozzarella here. So, or some Parmesan being grated. I'm going to keep this image the way that I had it. So I selected that image, and now I know, okay, the base of my social media picture is this image of the Parmesan tour. What else do I need to convey? So I'm thinking, I do want to convey my expertise. I want to convey that we know about unique things, but I also want to be fun. I want this to be something that my audience might giggle to themselves at, they might be compelled to like. So then I have to think about the text. The image is half of it, but the text is at least half of social media. People are reading social media. They're not sitting there and just scrolling through it and never paying attention to the words. The words really do say as much as the image. So are my words and my image lining up? So I was thinking, okay, cheese, travel, brainstorming, and I took out a piece of paper and I just created a web and I wrote cheese down. And then I wrote travel down, and I came up with a list of things, buon appetito, which means, eat up in Italian, cheesy, what are some words or puns that might come to mind? And then I realized that when people go on traveling, in Americans, they always say cheese right before they're about to take a picture. And since we focus on Italy, I wanted somehow to put a little bit of an added twist in here and mention that we have an Italian expertise. So I'm entertaining them, but I'm also conveying my expertise. So I thought it would be cute to say how to say cheese in Italian. This is short, it's simple, it's to the point, and it stands out. It also relates to our brand and what I'm trying to communicate, which is our expertise of unique things. But I didn't write, we have an expertise in unique things. I'm conveying this visually and through my words. So when you are thinking about the language of the text that you want to use, it's really useful sometimes for me to create a word web. So for instance, if you were going to be doing food tours, you might write on a piece of paper the word food, put it in a circle, and then jot down all the other words that came to mind. For instance, from scratch, recipes, bake, hungry, satisfy, quench, and then those words can be, folded into whatever language you want to use to convey your point. I also find that it's useful when you're coming up with images like this to create 4 or 5 sample texts. So this wasn't the first one that I came up with. I, wrote first how does, a couple other phrases that didn't quite ring as fun and didn't quite convey my brand. So I might have said formaggio, Italian for cheese, or something like that. That was fine, but it wasn't as fun. So you'll need to jot down 3 or 4. If you don't consider yourself a writerly person, but you have friends who always have sort of fun and engaging Facebook posts, it's useful for you while you're doing this side to maybe ask them for help. You might want to say, when you look at this image, what might you say about it that could be fun and entertaining? Does your text and your photo match? Do they convey similar ideas, but using one, language obviously, and using 2, imagery, a photo. If your goal is to convey your expertise in a serious way so the audience respects you, having a sort of goofy, cartoony photo isn't going to convey that to the audience. So you need to be sure that there isn't a conflict between the image and the words, and the image and the words and your purpose, the purpose of why you're creating the social media post. I find it's also helpful when you're doing something like this to use, try to swap in and out a few different photos to see how it looks. You can change the fonts and the colors here to see which one stands out the best. You want to be sure that this is 100% legible. So if you did this in a light beige, it would bleed into the background and the audience couldn't see it. If you were to do it in black, it might be a little too stark and not come across as friendly. I chose a yellow here because it already sort of has that cheesy feeling to it, and I used this outlined font because it really popped against this dark background. You'll even see that if I move this up here, it's harder to read, so I picked the darker part of the photo so that it's as visible and as legible as possible in this post. Once I've created this, I don't immediately post it. I show this to my colleagues, I show this to my friends, and I say, what do you like about this? Does this make you smile? Does this make you entertained? Do you think it's fun? So that the audience's response is always something that you're keeping in mind. You have to realize when you're creating these, it's not just about you, but it really is about the audience. When creating something shareable, the audience wants to share it from their own perspective, not because you've told them to, not because you say, hey, share this new thing, but because the content is something that they think is so great and entertaining and intelligent or, engaging or entertaining that they will post it to their friends and family. So at the very end, once you've created something like this, and you have a photo, and you have your catchy phrase, and you have here your brand or your hashtag, you have to think through a couple things in your head. Is the text visible? Can I read this once it's posted to social media? Did I include my brand and my website on the image? Yes, I did. This is visible, but if I put it over here, it's hard to read because the light sort of cancels out the text that is as important in my image as this. Does my image and my text line up? In this case, they do. I have cheese here, I have cheese here, I have Italian, so they all work together to convey a similar message, which is, I know about Italy, but I'm not going to do a hard sell, I'm just going to tell you that through this fun little post. If you saw this, you want to think to yourself, even if you weren't planning a trip, even if you didn't work in the travel industry, would you want to like it and would you want to share it? If the answer is no, you have to sort of rewind a little bit and think, okay, what about it don't I want to share? Is it pushy? Is it too simplistic? Is it a little too dry? Could it be more fun? Could the photo stand out a little bit more? Is it drab? All of these are important questions to keep in mind when creating social media posts. And is your text short and memorable? Everyone knows the expression, say cheese. So simply writing how to say cheese in Italian immediately connects with people. If I had text, 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 line after line after line, it's unlikely that my audience is going to read it, and it's even less likely that they're going to share it with their friends and family. So, to summarize, when creating social media posts like this, you want to think, what is your brand? Who is your audience? What are you trying to communicate about yourself to them? And are you keeping them in mind? Are you thinking, this is something fun that they might want to share, and along the way, you're creating a post that will have a life of its own. Once you post it, if one or two other people post it, even if it's just one or two other people, their friends might post it, their friends of friends might post it, and that post will take on a life of its own without you needing to spend extra money on your own to create advertisements. So you're getting your brand out there, you're getting your expertise out there, but it's happening in an organic way. It's not happening in a way of you having to purchase it and of you having to buy it. So once this is done, you can share this post either with a link or downloading it. I prefer to download something like this because it'll show you when you download it. At the bottom, we have this Adobe Spark. So I simply crop the photo to get that removed. And at that point, I can resave it using whatever name I want, and then I only have my brand in here and the text that I wanted to include, so I don't have to include that Adobe Spark. Thank you very much. I appreciate your questions and comments, and I will speak with you soon. Take care.